There I was, sick as a dog, hating my life, but slowly working my way through Avowed, Obsidian Entertainment's latest action RPG. I didn't drop the game even though I knew early on it just wasn't for me. You see, what actually kept me going was a sick curiosity. I wanted to see just how bad Avowed could get. How awful could my companions really be? How brain dead could the combat become? How lame could the resolution of this story actually be? How little could I care in the end? I had to see for myself. Now you might be asking, why did I start playing this game in the first place? Well, like I'd mentioned in the Ninja Gaiden 2 Black video, Xbox owed me a Game Pass subscription, and they were actually pretty generous and gave me more months than was originally agreed upon. Ninja Gaiden let me down, sure, but there were still plenty of other Xbox exclusive games I could finally give a fair shake, similar to what I did last year with PlayStation Plus and Sony exclusives like Uncharted 4 and Horizon Forbidden West. Xbox has been catching a lot of flack lately for all their strange business decisions. For many players, it's becoming harder to justify owning an Xbox console at all, and I mean, I don't blame them. I pretty much wrote them off when the head of Xbox, Phil Spencer, openly stated that simply making great games wouldn't be enough for them to shoot to the top. Despite Nintendo and Sony being right over there with all their great games. Are they really stubborn enough to think that that has nothing to do with it? If a platform I don't have has a game I want to play, I will acquire that platform. It's been this way from the beginning of gaming, and nothing about that changed with the 8th generation and digital libraries. Hell, I wanted to play Sonic CD, the original version, and you know what I needed? A Sega Genesis and a Sega CD, and I acquired both of those systems just for that game. This is not rocket science. All this time with Game Pass would let me see just what Xbox has been cooking for myself, so I can judge or defend them accordingly. I went into Avowed knowing nothing about it and with zero expectations, and as I played more and more, the real mystery I was trying to solve ended up being, just who the heck is this game for? In Avowed, you play the role of the Emperor's Envoy, and your mission is to investigate a sickness called the Dream Scourge. It's a mushroom plague that's sweeping through the Living Lands, and there's no cure. The Living Lands is sort of a Wild West, a frontier land where it's survival of the fittest, and things considered illegal in the Empire, like animancy, tampering with souls basically, can be practiced freely. Since the Living Lands are currently not under the control of your Emperor, the inhabitants are not too jazzed about you being there and poking around asking questions. The world, some characters, and all the different fantasy races actually originate from the Pillars of Eternity series. I've never played those games, so I can't really speak on it too much, but from what I've heard, they're well received, rich with lore, and they've got a loyal fan base. Your character also happens to be a godlike, basically someone of special birth who has been touched by a god. Thing is, no one seems to know what freaky mushroom god blessed you, and everyone you meet doesn't hesitate to mention how you've got the ugly.
How long? How long have I been ugly, Patrick?
As long as I can remember. You poor, ugly thing, you.
You get to choose the extent of your horrible mushroom affliction, ranging from Last of Us clicker to just hiding the effect entirely. I've yet to hear any other players who are super excited about looking like a disease in their power fantasy video game, and just about every option included here, even the more tame ones, just look terrible. NPCs still comment on how freakish you are, even if you hide your godlike features, so the whole situation just sucks.
Stay back. I'm not catching whatever's on your head.
Easy. He's a godlike.
You mean a god gave you that face? Touched your soul and everything?
That's right.
Never seen one of your kind before. I always heard folks say you were blessed. Looks more like a curse to me.
It's a simple concept. Players want to look cool in video games, and this does not look cool. There are actually a ton of strange design decisions in this game. I thought the environments you explore did look pretty great, at first. The lighting is kind of harsh at times, and that seems to be a quirk of Unreal Engine 5 that I also noticed in Ninja Gaiden, so I can forgive that. But as I move through the game, with everything being coated in mushrooms, all the areas started to blend together. The start of the game has grasslands with mushrooms, and the final area of the game is a craggy volcano with mushrooms. The entire game is just coated in this stuff, and it gets old fast. Enemy variety doesn't help the situation either, as every area is going to have you running into the same types of enemies. You're always going to see bears, you're always going to see lizard men, and you're always going to see afflicted and basic soldiers. None with designs that I feel stand out, just add more mushrooms. Worse than that, most of the game you're only going to be dealing with a few types of enemies, and they all use the same canned animations. For example, if you're fighting a knight, let's say he's using a big two-handed weapon. If you're fighting a knight, his basic combo and power attacks with that weapon are going to come out exactly like those of the same knight who's been afflicted with the Dream Scourge. Two different enemies, and technically two separate factions, but they're essentially the same enemy and they behave exactly the same. If that knight was a sword and shield user, he would again behave the same as every other enemy in the game who uses a sword and shield. There's no variety. This is especially true for all the mages in the game and ranged enemies. All archers try to dash away as you close in on them, and they've got a single kick attack to get you off of them. And all mages have an AoE for when you're too close, a rapid fire spell barrage, and a larger energy ball. Doesn't matter what element the mage specializes in, they're all the same to fight. This doesn't change from the start of the game to the end of the game. The game's world also doesn't react to anything you do. Stealing as a concept doesn't exist in this game. Just take whatever you want whenever you want. If you see it laying there, you can take it, zero consequences. You don't have to worry about killing important NPCs or getting on anyone's bad side, because city guards only exist as window dressing, and you cannot talk to or attack random NPCs anyway. You can't even attack random wildlife. This is a world that is completely indifferent to anything that you do. And I'm sorry, but for an RPG that wants to immerse me in its world, that's not a good look. Say what you will about Bethesda and Skyrim as an RPG, but I'll die on the hill that it's a masterful one, with a highly reactive world. Across build variety, characters, and even companions, Avowed can't even compete with Skyrim, without mods, and that game released in 2011. So how did I play Avowed? What was my build like? Well, I went sword and shield with a rifle as my backup weapon. I did not mess with the magic system or skill tree at all, outside of the few godlike abilities that you get as a part of the main story progression. And the only stats I favored were strength, health, and critical hit chance. In combat, enemies have their health, but also a stun meter. You fill it up with basic attacks, parries, and even your companion's skills. So once it's full, you can unleash a critical blow. This was cool at first, like maybe the first 10 times, but it got old really fast. This whole boot to the face animation I saw constantly, and after the first few hours, it really lost all the punch that it once had. I mean, to bring up Skyrim again, even that game has multiple kill animations for each weapon type. Avowed has one for each weapon type, and they just get old fast. Battles in Avowed are usually pretty big, with enemies attacking on all sides. At the start, it can actually be pretty overwhelming. I died quite a few times. There's an issue with aggro control for sure. Kai, the first party member you get, is considered the tank, and he's got 2 moves to control enemy aggression, but it's just not enough. That, and sometimes you don't necessarily want to have him in the party, you know? Enemies make a beeline for your character regardless of who started the fight, and they're able to slide and magnetize to you from way too far away, so positioning in a battle goes right out the window. The skill trees themselves are pretty bare bones, and it's not like the skills I chose were tough decisions that took me away from other choices I was just as excited for. No, those are just the only skills that I felt were worth a damn to invest in. So all of this combined is why I invested so heavily into a defensive stun build. With the parry, you're able to become untouchable when faced with any melee attack, so each fight boiled down to rush mages, rush archers, deal with knights, rinse and repeat. No enemies required any more strategy or planning or anything like that, and even just the act of hitting them with my sword didn't feel good at all. As opposed to slicing and dicing, it felt like the sword is totally blunt and can't cut at all. You just smack people with it. Animations are again shared for all the one-handed weapons, so this bashing animation at least felt a little better with my endgame weapon, this cool mace here. It makes black holes. Neat. The game does at least promote experimenting. Upgrading weapons is pretty easy. You just find stuff, dump them into the weapon gets stronger, nothing special or unique about it. Money is easy to come by, and respecking can be done at any time for just a bit of gold. The problem is that with such boring enemies, why even bother?
Shoot. That vase is far too high for me, and a ladder would have been perfect. But perhaps we don't need one. You're tall, striking, and well-toned.
There are 4 companions you'll recruit during the story, and yes, you have to recruit all of them. Mechanically, they are nothing but their skills. Yeah, that's an odd thing to say, so what do I mean by that? Well, let's look at the first 2 companions you get. Kai, and the dwarven king of the buzzkills himself, Marius. Neither of these guys have any weapons or equipment to manage. Neither of them can be directly controlled in combat. Neither of them can be told to stand in a certain place or focus and stay attacking a specific enemy. Neither of them even have stats. For both of them, the only thing setting them apart are their 4 skills. Like I said before, Kai is a tank, with abilities that keep enemies focused on him and his own health up. Marius is more of a DPS and support for ranged builds, able to root enemies in place and pierce through multiple enemies in a line. There's very little choice to be had when it comes to your companions. This would be an easy thing to fix too. If you could choose what weapons and armor your companions used, you'd be able to give them even more passive abilities that would help to set them apart and allow them to drill down further into specializations or cover their natural weaknesses. In battle, all you can do is tell them when to use their skills and on what enemy. Sort of like in the Mass Effect games, but even in those games, you manage the entire party's equipment. Party synergy is a joke, and I found myself running to revive these fools constantly. It's just not good. But as actual characters, they're somehow even worse. This game has the worst companions I've ever seen in an RPG. Actually, I take that back. Octopath Traveler has the worst companions I've ever seen in an RPG. But as far as companions who actually speak to each other, this game has the worst companions I've ever seen in an RPG. All of them have incredibly flimsy reasons for sticking with you in the first place. If you do something they don't like, they'll bitch, sure, but they won't ever do anything about it. Even though my character was mean to them at every chance I could be, by the final battle, they were all kumbaya with me and acted like we were the best of friends. It's so stupid. I've already mentioned Kai a few times. He's the first companion. Well, actually, this abomination Garrick is your first companion, but he disappeared early on and I never saw him again. Editing Xavier here, actually it turns out that after the events of the decision made in the first major quest, Garrick is killed and left for me to find hanging from a tree with this message of, "Your choices have consequences." I literally did not even find this my first time through, and no one ever mentioned his death. Wow, what a stupid game. Kai is probably the best companion, but that's only because his design isn't as offensive as some of the others, despite also being an abomination of character design. He's a fish man. He quips sometimes. Sure. Whatever. That being said, what is up with the character designs in this game? Did we learn nothing from Concord? Like, remember Concord? Developers. It's not that hard. Kai gets a pass from a lot of people because he has the same voice actor as Sexy Garrus from the Mass Effect series. I like Sexy Garrus and all, but this didn't do anything to endear me to Kai. Kai is lame. He's not fun to talk to, and I hate looking at him. And he's not funny either. Marius is the biggest bitch in video games. This guy is such a buzzkill. He is King Buzzkill. He's always complaining about everything you decide to do. Going into the endgame, he was being his typical pissy self over the plan we decided on, and I flat out asked him, hey, do you have a better fucking idea? And what do you think he said? Of course he said no, because he fucking sucks. He's not even useful in combat, he just completely sucks. He looks stupid, and he's a waste of a character slot. I fucking benched him forever as soon as Giada joined. He actually looks a lot better in his official character art. Hell, everyone in the game looks better in their official character art. Now that I think about it, this game as a whole really would have benefited from a more stylized look. But anyway, what we're left with here is stupid, bitch-ass Marius. 0 out of 10, get the hell out of my party. Giada is who you get next, and while she doesn't look stupid like everyone else, she's just boring. And the circumstances surrounding why she joins the party are so ridiculous, I literally laughed out loud. She's the healer of the group, so she was always useful in combat, but I had no interest in talking to her about literally anything. Although I will say, she was down to murder when I was down to murder, so that's something that I can respect at least. Then there's Yatzli. Yatzli? Just wow. Yatzli is a monster. Funnily enough, she was my other most used party member. But whenever she chimed in on pretty much anything, I just wanted the Dream Scourge to take me. Who designed this character? She's even kind of flirty the first time you meet her, and all I see when I look at her is the big eye emoji meme. She makes me sick. This fantasy race in particular, I don't even feel like looking up what they're called because I just don't care. This is one of the worst fantasy races I have ever seen in anything. And everything about Yatzli, and I mean everything, is terrible. Her color scheme makes me sick. Her eyes are dead. She has fur everywhere, and not in the good way. And it looks like shit. Her takes are always garbage, and she has quite possibly the worst reason for sticking around to the end out of anyone. I hate Yatzli with my whole entire chest. I really fucking do. 0 out of 10. Get back in my party, Yatzli, because you are useful in combat, damn it. When you and your merry band are done exploring, or when you want to tinker with your weapons, you can head to any camp. And this is also where you have those back on the Normandy style conversations with your party members. If you keep up with these, it'll lead to each person's companion quest. And I did not do any of them. I mean, I started to. I had the first few campfire discussions with Kai, but he was so boring, I found myself just mashing through his dialogue. That's something I found myself doing a lot in this game, because characters in Avowed do not know when to shut the hell up. I didn't bother speaking to Marius at camp because I already hated him at the start. Giada is boring, like I said, and the less I have to talk to Yatzli, the better. Avowed completely dropped the ball on characters, and spends way too much time exposition dumping bullshit Pillars of Eternity lore that no one but diehards will care about, all framed in the most boring, tired, camera A and camera B presentation. If you've played any major Western RPG in the last 20 years, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't know why these games are so averse to having proper cutscenes. You know, cinematography, characters actually doing things. From the start of Avowed to the end, every single dialogue exchange you have is going to play out in this stupid template and I hate it so goddamn much. I was so tired of it by the end that when I jumped into my next Game Pass game, Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and was immediately treated to actual cutscenes with great direction, acting, and cinematography that didn't bore me to tears, it was like a tall glass of fucking water after being in Avowed's mushroom desert for weeks. Imagine The Last of Us where all the dialogue was framed this way. It'd be fucking stupid.
Well, I'm sorry. I trust him better than I trust myself.
Stop with the bullshit. What are you so afraid of? That I'm gonna end up like Sam? I can't get infected. I can take care of myself.
How many close calls have we had?
Well, we seem to be doing all right so far.
And now you'll be doing even better with Tommy.
It's not 2007 anymore. This trend needs to die, especially as games look more and more realistic and facial animations get better and better. It just gets worse and worse to present a scene this way. People do not talk to each other this way. They talk to each other this way. Body language operates this way. And we need to work harder to better present these worlds and characters. At least if you want players to give a damn. So, in conclusion, this game is bad. But I was really curious what the developers' goals for this game actually were. So I checked out an interview with Carrie Patel, the game director. Turns out that early into the project there was a creative pivot and a change in leadership. And originally the game even had co-op, which is pretty interesting to think about.
So where Avowed started it was actually started in 2018 at E3, when we were kind of, as a studio, we were looking for our next thing. And it really was where our intent at the time, or how we were thinking about it is, hey, let's go make our Skyrim, and also let's make it multiplayer. So let's shoot for the moon and do the crazy thing in 2018. And so then we got acquired, and we started working on it. And we really were trying to stick to that idea of this kind of more open world, more multiplayer. And I think what was happening, and I mean, we've talked about it a lot, but try not to obsess about it, where we were kind of moving away from what we do as an RPG maker. We found in the Outer Worlds, we just do a really good job from the standpoint of like these semi-open world. It sounds like a weird way of saying it, but just these regions that really work well. They have a focus, they have a story themselves. They have the people that are there. As you were remarking, it's about all the world building. And I think as we were seeing what was happening, the game just wasn't coming together, and we were making it different than we've made them before. And that's kind of what led to now transitioning and moving the team over to Carrie making it.
The initial reveal trailer for this game looks nothing like the final product. This looks like a much darker and serious fantasy world, and I just don't understand why they changed the direction so much. So, in the end, was I able to figure out who the hell this game was made for? Well, maybe it would help to work backwards and say who it's not made for. If you're looking for an immersive, highly reactive world to explore, where your choices really matter, Avowed is not that game. If you're looking for excellent and meaningful build variety and character customization, with plenty of reason to come back after finishing the main story, Avowed is not that game. If you're looking for great combat with engaging enemies and plenty of enemy variety, Avowed is not that game. If you're looking for a world you can fully roleplay in, doing only what you want to do, sort of creating a second life for your character within the world, Avowed is not that game. And lastly, if you're looking for a great story with lovable characters and memorable moments, say it with me now. Avowed is not that game. My best guess for someone who will actually enjoy this game is someone who is deep into the Pillars of Eternity series, and people who just don't know any better. As for me, this was a swing and a miss from Obsidian, and hopefully they find more success when The Outer Worlds 2 drops later this year. This is actually the first game of theirs I've actually ever played. I have Fallout New Vegas, but I've just never gotten around to it. Avowed is not the best first impression, and that's a real shame. How about you guys? Did any of you enjoy this game more than me? Did you think it was mid? Sound off in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I make a new video every month, so until next time, peace.